So we're back in LA, pretty much 73 on down. You got just about everybody. Then you were doing the clubs. What we had, the Roxy, the Whiskey, the Troubadour.
All of those, yes. The Roxy, the Troubadour, the Whiskey.
Which are all walking distance from where we are right now in this studio.
Right, exactly. Hollywood Palladium. Many hard rock bands would play at the Long Beach Arena. They would play the LA Sports Arena, the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. God, what other venues come to mind? I mean, there were a fair amount of venues, you know, San Bernardino.
So one of the ones that got me, again, I go back to Zeppelin, but I remember this, it was a Circus Magazine fold-out of Jimmy from 75. I never knew who shot it until about a month ago when I realized it was you. And it was that cool shot, and it's just, you know, I remember it was a fold out, and I had it cut out and put on my wall as a kid. I didn't know that was yours because a lot of that stuff wasn't always credited properly back then.
Yeah, it should have been, obviously. I did a lot of work with Circus Magazine, some with Cream, Crawdaddy, which was a newspaper that folded the same way as the original Rolling Stone. You know, there was Hit Parader. There were a lot of music magazines. Music Express in Japan, Bravo in Germany. All these magazines would be publishing, a lot of music stuff. And I'm trying to remember Sweden. There was a magazine up there that used a lot of stuff as well.
Well, somebody going back to New York a little bit and then moving up to LA was all of your Who archives. I mean, I'm looking at, you shot them, but it looks like almost more than anybody.
Yeah, they played a lot, and they came here often. I think I told you earlier, 67 was the first time I shot the Who, and then subsequently at the Fillmore East, which was the first time I saw them perform Tommy, the rock opera. And I'm not.
You must have gotten them here at the Forum for Quadrophenia in 73 and then 75 at the Who by Numbers.
Yes. Anytime they came to Los Angeles, after I originally shot them in New York, I would photograph them because it was one of my favorite bands. So
well, it looks like it in the way you shot them. You knew who they were because your pictures are a little bit different of the Who than some of the others because you knew everything about the band.
Yeah, I mean it was the same with Zeppelin. You knew them. You knew what they were doing, and obviously they continued longer than Zeppelin, obviously because of the tragedy of losing John Bonham. But yeah, each one of those members had a very distinct and unique personality. And you shot them in very specific ways because, just as an example, John Entwistle, one of the great rock and roll bass players, he played bass like it was a lead guitar. And you needed to be able to capture the moments when he was doing his thing. And of course, obviously Pete Townsend, one of the great rock and roll guitar players and songwriters, of all time. So, and Roger Daltrey, when the guy swung that microphone, you needed to capture it.
Yeah.
And drummers being the hardest members of a band to shoot because they typically are recessed. But Keith Moon obviously was an amazing, drummer, and he had a flair, just like John Bonham did. You needed to, when they did their thing, you needed to be ready to capture those moments because they were fleeting and very quick. So that's what added the fun, is the excitement, and you needed to be on your A game to be able to capture those things.
Well, it was lightning in a bottle. Look at it. That party's over.
Yeah.
You've got sloppy seconds and thirds of versions of the bands out there now that are not original members, and it's good, but it's, you were there when it really mattered.
Yeah, obviously they're very talented musicians now, but it is a different era. It is a different type of music. That era, I think, that I lived through, and many other people did as well, was unique because based on the time that it was happening and the reflection of that time in the music. and thus in the photography, because you're capturing those moments. And the way musicians responded to things, current events. Classic example of that is Crosby, Stills and Nash doing Ohio after the National Guardsmen, took out the students on their campus. So
one of the things you got that was really unique, and I'm a little late to the party on you doing this, was the Midnight Special years.
Oh yeah.
That famous shot you've got of Aerosmith, is just, that is too cool. I have one with James Fortune. Y'all must have been standing next to each other.
It could have been. It could have been.
But you did a lot of those, and everybody played it.
Yeah, that ran for a long time. I managed to create a relationship with the producer and the co-producers, so they allowed me to come in there and shoot quite often. It was a very controlled environment, nice lighting. It was at the NBC studios in Burbank, California. It went on, as I said, for some time, and many people performed there. I didn't shoot everybody, quite obviously, but
you couldn't have. It was hundreds.
Yeah, I would have had to have lived there, basically.
Well, one of the things you got that was cool was the interviews, because obviously you weren't just another photographer there. You were friendly with them because they let you in on certain things where obviously there wasn't a whole cavalry of photographers there.
Right.
And the one thing with Phil May from the Pretty Things and J.J. Jackson and Robert Plant, and everybody knows J.J. Jackson is one of the original, VJs on MTV, but before that he was the guy in L.A. Mm-hmm. I think it was a KMET, and then you had him there at Midnight Special.
Yeah, I don't recall the details of what that was. Obviously, J.J. Jackson was interviewing both Robert Plant and Phil May of the Pretty Things.
That was in 75.
Okay. So I don't recall Zeppelin performing on Midnight Special.
They didn't.
Possibly the Pretty Things did, and maybe Robert was friends with Phil and came in on.
Well, don't forget the Pretty Things were on their label Swan Song, and they had just been signed, so he was probably just helping them out. And Robert was also very friendly with JJ.
Right. Okay. So there's the connection.
Yeah.
If you look at a list of the people that performed on Midnight Special, it's an endless list, and all genres of music. Once I would see a list, I could say, "Oh, okay, I did that show."
We'll come back to that. There's going to be more where this came from. There's no way we can do all this in one sitting, because as we can all see here, your story's endless, and it's still going. And what we've done here is a pretty good job of scratching the surface, and I really appreciate it.